experience at Colby has been, overall in one word, awesome.
So far, Colby's been awesome. Everyone's been so welcoming. I've had a great time every weekend, and even I've enjoyed my classes so far.
Overall, I would say great. I mean, I'm a senior this year, and I love this place. It definitely has become part of me and grew a lot from everyone around you.
Always been a wonderful experience so far. You meet a lot of different kinds of people.
There are certain things that we just don't talk about, right? And there are certain things, yes, that maybe don't seem, they don't seem to be the way they are on the surface. But I think part of what happens is we tell ourselves certain stories about what's going on or what's important or what's valuable or what we're doing here or what the enterprise is. And then we don't stop and ask questions about the consequences of that or the underlying values. We don't necessarily think about that. We maybe stay too much on the surface of things.
Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave. They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves, and they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them.
The vicious legacy of white supremacy is America's rawest nerve, is America's most difficult dilemma, it is America's most explosive issue, it is America's most intractable problem. There's no doubt about it.
I'm a Japanese Palo Alto man.
I am a Russian-American man.
I'm an American-American man.
I'm a Brazilian woman.
I'm a Swazi man.
There's a racial problem that's underneath the surface at Colby, and everybody kind of feels that there's a tension.
Well, I think all too often we think that simply adding a number of people who fit into certain demographic categories will change the institution.
I think it's very interesting how Colby uses the numbers. Like they say that we have all these people from all over the world, we have all these states, and what for? Like they're just trying to get more people to make it look prettier. And this is a culture that is just like deceiving people from the reality, and they're just selling a product in a bluntly way.
I feel like I was a little misled when I came to visit during my senior year of high school, because through the Colby Live program, because I was like, oh, this is awesome, it's all this diversity, this is great. And then I come here and I feel like it's like majority white, and I mean it is, but I didn't realize how much I would actually feel that.
People should be more comfortable talking about problems with race, and because it's a real topic and it needs saying.
We don't talk to each other about this. You know, what we have at Colby is I think, an almost entire, you know, we have all these modes of communicating, but we don't actually manage to communicate. We don't actually talk to each other in ways that are real.
When I take seriously the documents such as Colby's mission statement, or the precepts for students and so forth, and also really the meaning and history of what it means to be at an educational institution, and more specifically a liberal arts educational institution, I do think that it's incumbent upon us to do more and to do better with regard to race relations on campus.
I think students of color often feel marginalized because their worldview and experience is not even on the table as one of the possibilities that we might be talking about. Right? It's just, it's made invisible. And the thing that's so insidious about this is I genuinely think more often than not, it is not being explicitly repressed. It's just not even on the table. It's not even up for discussion.
There isn't really much attention, I think, directed towards Asian American students. And the reason I specify Asian American students is because I feel like the international Asians are automatically grouped under international students, like that entire umbrella. And they're just kind of one massive group.
In many cases, international students are the ones that have to reach out to American students and to actually engage into relationships. And this is a dynamic that I would expect it will be different from a place that is like proud of having more than 70 nationalities conglomerated in a place. So, and I wonder why. Why does that happen?
When you're coming to Colby, you're not only having to deal, as an international student, you're not only having to deal with the fact that you're in a different country, but you're also having to deal with, you've come into in a society that's already defined. It's not like everyone here is new to the whole system, Everybody else knows what's going on, like what people hang out here, what people do there. You've got football kids who sit on the same table, or soccer kids, or sports teams, or people who hang out from this side. So you're all new to that, so you don't know any of that stuff. So I feel like that makes you kind of lost, and the only people who can identify with that sort of being lost are other international students.
I can't necessarily explain what the majority culture is.
Yeah, but you definitely know that there is one.
And I'm not a part of it. Yeah.
The assumptions of the majority group structure everything about the institution. And no one means to be mean, and no one means to be exclusive, but I think there's a way in which we really haven't examined our own institutional structures and our own assumptions, and we haven't been willing to broaden them to accommodate that this is not a homogeneous place, and it hasn't actually been for a long time. And I think the consequences of that is that many people, or the consequences of that are that many people feel alienated, feel not at home, feel uncomfortable, because there's a set of assumptions that are operating that might feel deceptive or dishonest. I think they're probably not intended as deceptive or dishonest, but they are the result of failing to think about what we're really doing and what our assumptions about the world are.
And I did a lot of research. I found out a lot about the activism that's going on campus. And I decided to make a film, and it came out. It was called Black on the Hill. It was filmed. It was screened on campus in a Diamond Ostro building, packed auditorium, and we even had a great conversation after.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, I believe race plays a role everywhere in America, probably in the world, but yeah.
It does, it's just hidden.
So I felt in that moment, I was like, finally I've done something tangible to bring this issue to life. And finally, Colby's going to be forced to deal with it authentically. And I got emails from professors saying, yeah, we want to film, we want to screen this in my class. I even got contacted by someone saying that Bro Adams wanted to see the film. In the summer, I was contacted to send the film. Some trustee members wanted to see it. So I was like feeling great. I was like, finally, the issue of race is going to be dealt with. I was joking. I was excited.
But I think we all carry around inside of us the larger assumptions of the society, which are inherently racist.
Run away! He won't run away! You guys, where is he gonna go?
I think the institution is reluctant to undergo structural change and to really do that kind of self-examination that would involve really asking people what their experience is like and how they perceive it, taking that seriously, and then making changes to accommodate it.
All we need to do is get together and say, we don't want the black students to have to sit at their own table. We don't want them to have to go to their own parties. We want to kind of, we want to be a melting pot. We want to share our culture with one another. So I think there's definitely a potential for activism here. It's been here in the past. It's 2012, Bicentennial year. And why not? Why can't we make it happen?
I'm still hopeful that we can, in fact, live up to the very standards that we've set for ourselves in the institution.
Behind them, a fire is burning. And between the prisoners and the fire is a raised walkway. Now imagine that each day, a menagerie of objects crosses the walkway. Animals, and people carrying their wares to market. Their shapes create an intricate shadow play on the wall in front of the prisoners. This is the only world that the prisoners have ever known. The shadows and the echoes of unseen objects.
We often operate as though there was only one way of learning, or there's only one kind of student who's normal, who is successful. And the truth of the matter is, and we all know this, that there are lots of learning styles, and there are lots of ways to be brilliant, and there are people who may have one particular kind of issue, whether it's neurological or whatever it might be, that means they can't learn in a particular way. That doesn't mean they can't learn.
Learning differences is kind of this big umbrella term that a lot of different disorders and disabilities are kind of lumped into. Another aspect of learning differences is the way people learn. So some people are auditory learners, other people are visual learners. And the thing is, in the institution that we're at, whereas higher education in general, it might not cater to an individual's way of learning, thus making it very difficult for them.
A lot of this is relatively new. Like 20 years ago, learning differences, there wasn't much to them. No one really knew about them. And so for professors, that's hard because they're not used to this, and all of a sudden, they've always had kids who've struggled. And so they're like, why are these students any different? And the thing is, it's been there all along. It's just now we're realizing that we have the potential to allow everyone to succeed, and we need to do that.
A lot of students who've been able to be successful in high school because they had a support system that helped them negotiate their learning difference, they come here and they find that system isn't really in place. It's very minimal.
Once you come into Colby, you have to contact Dean Atkin to try to get classified.
I am support services, and that is a portion of my total job. As the coordinator for support services, what I'm able to do is when a student has a documented learning difference and can provide the department with neurocognitive or psychological educational test report, review that report, see where those cognitive deficits or challenges lie, and then award that student with the appropriate accommodations. 90 to 95% of the accommodations asked for and awarded by this office are extra time on exams and graded in-class assignments.
For a lot of students, they don't know that they have a learning difference, and for some reason they just never picked up on it in elementary school, middle school, high school, and they had great grades and they got into Colby, and they get here and all of a sudden this learning difference comes out, and it's very difficult to know where to turn.
I don't know if the administration or the campus knows how much of an issue this is for a lot of students on campus and how many students it's driving away from Colby.
As far as the students that you say that are suffering, I'm aware of some of them, but even I'm not aware of all of them.
I have a friend the other week who happens to have a learning disability, and she said she felt like she couldn't breathe, that the amount of pressure here and the lack of support was entirely overwhelming, and that she felt like she couldn't stay afloat at Colby and was worried even about staying in Colby for the semester. And I think it's a huge emotional and academic burden in a way, just because your brain isn't functioning the same way as everyone else. So on top of the stress that any other student would have, you have this disability working against you with no one working
there's no formal program for students with learning differences.
I would say we're probably more toward the back of the line than the front of the line. And I think largely that is because we have always been an institution that has been very tight staffed. That's been the idea. The way the budget and economics are managed are in a very conservative manner. So what you're asking for is, why doesn't the administration say more about it? My honest answer is, I'm not sure that they're aware perhaps of the scope of the problem in the way that you and the students that are working on this particular project are.
I'd like to see Colby offer the same services that every public high school in America offers for students with disabilities, which is a concrete center, a separate testing room, a quiet space where they can study, and trained professional faculty who are there to support them academically and emotionally.
I think we all agree that there needs to be a physical center, and that there needs to be a place where students can go instead of just kind of playing this guessing game of who do I find at Colby to support me.
We're at a point today where our professors should be educated about learning differences, what they are and how they affect students, and kind of what they need to do, what they, being the professors, need to do to assist their students and provide support for them.
This is one of those places where I want to say, okay, for your $58,000, this should be something that you just get. And we should just provide them as a matter of course. Students shouldn't have to come and beg for them.
Do you know who serves you your food? Do you even care?
Nice day.
Sodexo is the 21st largest corporation on the planet.
Enjoy your pasta.
In 1994, Sodexo created an alliance with Corrections Corporations of America, the world's largest private prison company. Sodexo became not only CCA's largest shareholder, but also the private prison company's partner in a joint venture to spread the gospel of private prisons across the globe.
Well, I think this goes back to your question about sort of the hidden truths that are below the surface that we don't ask about. We just look at the fact that Sodexo, I assume, provides good value for the money from the point of view of the people who hire them. We like the food, it's good, right? We have lots of choice. So we don't stop and say, who is it that we're in business with, right? We think only about the level of what they're in business with us to provide what service. We don't ask questions about what are the values of the company. We don't ask larger questions about what has happened to our nation that we suddenly have this prison industrial complex in which private corporations are operating prisons. Arguably, that's a public function that the state should be doing. We have outsourced this to private corporations, which we don't pay very close attention to. Like, how much do any of us really know, if we're not sociologists, criminologists, how much do we really know about what goes on in American prisons? As soon as you dig below the surface, you find out that it's actually direly bad.
In 2001, due to widespread criticism and an extensive campus-based campaign, Sodexo claimed it was ending its relationship with the private prison industry. However, some sneaky deals were going on behind closed doors between CCA and Sodexo. Sodexo became the sole owner of the UK detention service. It also acquired Corrections Corporations of Australia. Sodexo continues to expand its direct involvement with the private prison industry. The Dump Sodexo campaign was waged by college students who not only took the industrial part of the prison industrial complex head on, but who also successfully linked prison issues to critical issues of campus democracy, workers' rights, and corporate power through a medium that virtually every student or former student in America can understand: the dining hall.
I would absolutely like to be paid more. Central Maine in general has a lower pay scale than, say, Southern Maine, but I've been looking around for jobs and seeing what's going on out there, and for what I get paid, I could be a line cook at a steakhouse, responsible only for cooking 150 to 200 perfectly cooked steaks a night. Whereas here, I got to feed several hundred people a couple times a day, order all the food, supervise the staff and all that, and I enjoy those aspects of my job. It's what chefs do. But it's a little disheartening when I know I can go work at a pub, feed 150 people, and make more money, and not have to think as hard.
My name is Veronica Gilbert. I'm originally from New York City. We moved up to Maine back in 1980. And I found a job here advertising in a newspaper, and I applied for it. And I'm glad I did the right thing because I loved it.
I'm Rachel Akers. I grew up in Vasboro, Maine. I've been a Mainer all my life. I have 2 handicapped children at home. And then I have a younger child that has ADHD. I live in Vasboro now. I worked at Colby for about 7 years now.
I've been here 10 years. All I get 2.5% raise. Those 2.5% raise, you figure $10, it'd be what, 25 cents raise? Come on, how can we afford that? I feel bad for the part-timers. They only get $7.50 an hour, and they only get 2.5% raise. How can we make it go up? I make more money if I go out there and probably get more what I get than here. But I don't want to quit because I care about the students. And they're my number one majority. They're more fun to be with.
You mentioned that you have some sick children. How are the health benefits for?
I don't have any. We don't have, part-timers don't have that.
So what happens if, say, you get sick? You're not covered at all?
Mm-mm. No.
If you're late, 1/2 point's taken away. If you call out, it's 1 point. But if you call out 3 days in a row, that's 1 point. Now, if you call out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and work Tuesday and Thursday, that's 3 points. This is the worst part. What happens if my children are sick? I got to go home, take my kid to the hospital, go home to my husband. Why did they have to take away my points? It doesn't make sense.
I can get a call at any time that I have to go home, get him to a hospital. And that's a 1/2 point taken right there. And what do I choose, my job or my kids? Because, they only give you 7 points. And my kids have a lot of doctor's appointments. And it's hard. It's really hard. And I'm not blaming my manager here because he's supported me through a lot. The manager here is, you couldn't ask for a better manager. Well, in my view. Because when my son got in his accident, he was there supporting me. And that was before the point system. And he's been supporting me ever since. But his hands are tied because these higher-ups think that, well, 7 days is good enough, when it's not. Especially if you got snow-covered roads, you're going to slip off when you're trying to get here. Because oh my God, you're going to lose your job if you don't get in here.
So we have to work our system around here. We don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared to take a day off. I'm afraid to be fired.
How do you feel about us conducting this interview? Do you have any fears of what might happen, or?
I'm a little afraid because, I just don't want to lose my job over this.
They don't want to speak up. They're afraid to lose their job. big time. And sometimes I feel like they don't want to listen to us. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, okay. What happened? Nothing's been changed. We want to be heard. You know, by the big bosses out there. They need to know how we feel about the job.
Business, the customer is right. What the customer wants, the customer gets. I personally don't see the college getting as involved in that sort of thing as far as managing the management of dining services, which is why they hire the dining services to begin with, just so they don't have to worry about pay scales and that sort of thing. But, you know, the college listens to the students, so the students make up an uproar and the college says, okay, I guess we got to do something about this. They're going to go to the upper management for Sodexo and says, okay, we got to do something about this. And Sodexo is going to say, okay, we'll either do something about this or we're going to move on to the next account.
So I want the students to know what's going on here at Sodexo, because they are the one that's supporting us. They're the one that's giving us a paycheck. See what I'm saying?
Other dorm damage stuff?
Yes.
Is that a big issue in Dayton?
Sometimes, depends on the year. The biggest thing is people not fire extinguishers or just being destructive, you know, tearing down exit signs and all that stuff.
First move here, I always admire Colby College, the campus, how beautiful they are, and I said, I'm gonna try to get in. And it took me a year to get in to be a custodian, believe it or not. Yes.
Last year, someone took down my sign and broke it. You know, it was very hurtful for me that, I give them a clean building and someone does that to me that we don't deserve a sign, I took it personally. I told my boss I didn't, but deep down I did take it personally. That someone would do that, they've done it otherwise, they ripped it, they cut it, they broke it in two and threw it under the girl's door, And then they had to make a comment, we don't deserve nameplates,
Be responsible, be respectful. Like I say, this is your home, By the time Monday come, you guys have to suffer Saturday and Sunday. You know what I mean? So, I'll leave it up to you.
I'm just a people person anyways, and I'm a very caring person, so that, like I said, I feel this is your home, and I try to go above and beyond so that you guys have a clean place and everything. It's just the kind of person I am, so.
If it is just my regular, time and pay, a little tight, but, us parents, you do what you gotta do. Not that I want to be here 7 days a week, but, at least overtime is there. Now it's just like my kids get used to me being at work, and then once in a while when I'm not working in the weekend, they would ask me, Mom, you're not at work? You know what I mean?
I said, people are, if they speak out, they feel fearful for their job. If they speak out about, stuff.
Such as increased wage?
Yes, and stuff like that. People are afraid to ask and all that stuff because they're afraid that they'll lose their job.
I can sit here and say anything I want to you, right? I have academic freedom, so I'm entitled to my opinion. And somebody might not like it, but no one will fire me for having an opinion that perhaps doesn't agree with somebody who's powerful. And that's not true for the staff. They can be fired pretty much at will. And so what that means is those folks who have fairly low salaries and therefore sometimes challenging and difficult existences, they're not in a position to say what they think. They really have to be quiet, put up with whatever they're told, whatever the rules are. I think they're not empowered in the way the rest of us are. And that's very troubling because in this kind of institution, right, we don't actually interrogate that hierarchy at all.
I would like to hope that Colby would be the sort of institution to pay a living wage to people who really are quite dedicated to Colby. And I have to say, in my experience, there is a kind of dedication to the institution. It's not just kind of coming in, putting in your hours and so forth. I think for the most part, what I've observed is that Colby custodial staff, cafeteria staff and so forth do feel a real connection to the institution and to the people who make up the institution.
And we are looking at the world as, well, we want to save the world, that's why we are here, but are we saving our home? Are we saving the people that really live here nearby us? Are we looking at them? Are we feeling them? Or they are just passing by our eyes?
What have we been willing to do in order to make lots of money? And what kinds of inequity and injustice and domination are we willing to not look at in order to sustain an economic system that is producing tremendous rewards for a small group of people, including this institution and lots of us? You know, I mean, we're implicated.
Now, imagine that the prisoner is released. After some time adjusting to the blinding light, the freed prisoner will begin to experience the world outside of the cave for the very first time. And it is like nothing he could have ever imagined.
Intense passivity, apathy of the younger generation that won't protest. They use the internet instead of going out with their feet and marching.
And the reason is because young people have been so penetrated with a capitalist culture and the culture of superficial spectacle and instant gratification and overnight success and push button getting over.
So I'm not surprised that young people, you know, they don't know quite what you're talking about.
See, for me, I don't think we're going to talk about getting out of the mess that we're in unless we engage the younger generation.
In the 1960s, my generation set out on a journey of change. Coming out of an atmosphere of conformity, a new spirit began to appear.
Well, I think there's a bit of a generational change. Young folks these days do not like to be controversial. They don't like controversy. And I can understand that, but sometimes making change requires controversy and difficulty.
This summer, I was forwarded on an article that said Diamond Barclays CEO in trouble for a scandal about fixing the Libra rate. And so I immediately began to question what are the implications of this in terms of Colby College, where Bob Diamond is the chairman of the board of trustees.
Well, it's a tough situation. As you probably know, the college issued an official memorandum when the Board of Trustees voted to affirm his position as to remain as chair of the board.
Diamonds are forever. They are all I need to please
We've seen that influence of the banking industry permeate almost every element of our culture. We see it in our politics, we see it in our media. And maybe I'm an idealist, but I would like to think that academia is the last place that influence will take over.
I certainly can see the logic and behind the statement that was issued by the trustees, and I think, of course, we want to affirm those values of withholding judgment about things that we don't know about, and fairness, and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and all those things.
What was of some concern to me, however, is that the memo, in putting things that way, seemed to have stifled further conversation.
It was a now we're not going to talk about this anymore. Like, we've decided how this is going to go, and we're not going to discuss it. And I think that is antithetical to the enterprise that we're engaged in here.
It's hard to think of a really important shift in outlook or culture that occurred without student engagement. So remember this, you can make a difference here.
If you truly believe, you're sure that it's right, you know, sometimes it's time to get into the trenches. Sometimes that means, you know, ruffling feathers. That's part of what we do in America. That's a story of change in America. And often it springs from young people.
The effort here is to see the board invite
You did wondering what the protocol was, what you were told, what can we do, what can't we do, where can we cross?
You can, basically the line from that bench to this bench, they've just asked that you stay on that side of the line.
Not in that building? I mean, like, what, they're in that building right now? Or?
Yes, there's meetings going on in there that they don't want to start.
Okay, right. So they said you're going to be here to make sure you don't cross this line?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. We just wanted to understand this.
Yeah, that's basically all they've asked is that you stay on that side of that line.
Okay.
Do they think we're going to disrupt? Do they think there's a potential of us?
No, they just don't want it disturbed.
Are they going to be walking in between these buildings?
That I don't know.
Okay. Or are they staying in that building?
I'm not really sure what they're going to stay in that building schedules.
Okay.
Is that a normal protocol? Is that a normal thing that they do?
I don't know. That's what they've asked us to do for today.
We have security here to see that those who need to hear the truth don't hear it. But the news will fix that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The LIBOR rate rigging scandal has rocked the world of finance. Several banks are under investigation, a hefty fine has been handed down, and there have been top-level boardroom departures, most notably that of Bob Diamond, the now former chief executive of Barclays.
Madness.
Last year on a wall in the Diamond Building, I put up signs that said Public Art for Social Change. And we had posters, statistics about the global inequalities, and just to get people talking. This is when Occupy Wall Street began. We just wanted to get people reflecting on what's happening out in the world. And that campaign on the wall lasted from October until March. It was a big display. This year, in October, Shelby and I put up signs that said, "Who is Bob Diamond?" And we made an aesthetically pleasing display that had presentations of everything that's good about Bob Diamond, all he's donated to Colby, all of his excellent business handlings. And then we had the news stories about him being involved in the scandal. That was taken down the next morning by PPD. Why? Why don't they want us talking about this?
Individual and group initiative really does matter, and that's generally a good thing. It also brings with it certain obligations. The first has to do with learning about how the college really works. That will take a bit of time and perseverance. It's a pretty complicated place, as it turns out, but you will be better prepared and able to make a difference if you understand how things happen around here. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
With his new perception of the world, the man will of course want to return to his friends to share his incredible discoveries. But the prisoners cannot recognize their old friend. He appears as all things do. His voice is a distorted echo, and his body is a grotesque shadow.
We had our first action here, which was July 21st, this past summer. And that got a lot of press coverage. And then we did our second action here, and a number of you guys became involved at that point on September 12th. And now, you know, obviously your movement's growing. You know, you get a lot more people here, a lot more activity, and that's good, and it's where it should be. You know, I'm an alumni here, but it's really the students that are going to, you know, feel the impact of, you know, the banking policies that are promulgated by people like Diamond, and the impact upon the global economy and the American economy. And you may not, most of the student body doesn't appreciate that now, but a few years out of school, when they're still looking for, you know, it's going to dawn on them that this was the type of thing that they should have become activated, you know, out of their own self-interest.
This is an institution of higher learning, supposedly teaching people about integrity, truth, justice, fairness, how to have a better world.
Around the question of Bob Diamond, the other thing that I worry about is we're busy instituting a task force on student accountability. We want to make sure that everybody is behaving, you know, is encouraged and supported in behaving in an ethical way that is respectful of the values of everybody else on campus. Right? We want students to be accountable for their own ethical lives and ethical behavior. But we don't want to have a conversation about the ethics of the business world, not necessarily Mr. Diamond, right? I mean, he's one example, but he is simply a participant in a larger system that as a nation we don't want to question.
It is important that one needs to have consciousness and deliberate action of being aware and notice of things that are happening around him or her. In that way, when you notice those things, they touch the core of your being. And in that sense, it's easy to take action.
They cannot understand his fantastic stories of the world outside of the cave. To them, it will never exist. This, of course, does not make the world outside of the cave any less real.
To put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented. They have to explain why you were mad.
We're alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. And when my life is, and when my life is